The A20 Pro 2nm chip inside the upcoming iPhone 18 Pro Max costs an estimated $280 per unit. That represents a brutal 80% price hike for a single microscopic piece of silicon sitting quietly inside a metal chassis.
Trace this financial hemorrhage directly back to the physical realities of the 2-nanometer fabrication process. Shrinking a transistor down to the size of a few atoms creates massive yield issues on the manufacturing floor.
You're talking about components so small that...
We are dealing with quantum mechanics at this scale.
Mm.
Factories are throwing away thousands of ruined silicon wafers every single day because managing electrical currents at a subatomic level results in massive defect rates.
And those discarded wafers cost money.
Discarding them completely destroys the profit margins of the semiconductor foundries. They simply pass their billion-dollar losses down the chain to Apple.
The total bill of materials for this specific smartphone is facing a potential $300 increase. It's driven almost entirely by skyrocketing DRAM memory and NAND flash storage prices, alongside that new A20 Pro chip.
Apple refuses to absorb a $300 margin hit. They view their profit margins as untouchable laws of physics.
Paying an extra $300 just for the invisible memory and processor inside a phone feels like buying a luxury car and being charged an extra $10,000 at the dealership just for the privilege of having an engine block under the hood.
Apple is experiencing a massive internal cost crisis that threatens their fundamental business model. They fight this bleeding by ruthlessly squeezing the manufacturers who build the physical exterior of the phone.
You hear the term chipflation thrown around constantly right now. Consumers just sort of assume this means tech gets a little more expensive over time due to standard inflation.
The reality is far more violent. Smartphone makers are actively cannibalizing their own procurement budgets.
They are actively offsetting the exorbitant cost of the internal brains by aggressively devaluing the physical parts you actually touch.
Marching into the corporate offices of Samsung Display and LG Display, demanding a massive, unprecedented 20% price cut on OLED panel.
The audacity of those negotiation tactics is staggering. They proposed paying $70 per display panel.
Industry estimates flowing in ahead of the September's launch show, Apple will actually acquire them for an average of $66.50.
Historical context makes this specific demand completely absurd. The iPhone 16 Pro Max panels cost Apple over $100 per unit.
The iPhone 17 Pro Max panels fell to $80.
Now they want a $66 panel for their most expensive premium device.
Keep the technological advancements in mind here. The M16 OLED material set being utilized for the iPhone 18 Pro Max is significantly superior to anything the display industry has produced before.
This new material chemistry features, it has drastically improved luminous efficiency.
Pushing out more brightness while consuming less battery power, alongside superior color accuracy over the lifespan of the device.
Developing these new organic compounds costs billions in research and development.
Apple is extracting next-generation display technology at a steep, punishing discount.
Walk into a real estate office, point at a brand new, custom-built mansion, and demand to pay 20% less than you paid for a cramped starter home last year.
They throw you out onto the sidewalk.
You end up on the street wondering what went wrong. Apple makes that exact same demand for vastly superior technology, and the display manufacturers just hand over the keys.
Samsung and LG operate within the brutal economies of scale that define modern tech manufacturing. They have tens of billions of dollars permanently tied up in custom fabrication plants.
Those giant factories have to run continuously to pay off the initial capital expenditure.
Shutting down a cleanroom environment and halting the chemical deposition machines ruins the materials currently on the line.
The physics of a display fabrication plant dictates the business strategy. You cannot just turn off the machines at 5 o'clock and go home.
Restarting those massive industrial systems takes weeks. It costs millions of dollars in lost productivity.
Idle machines mean immediate financial ruin. Apple weaponizes this physical reality during every single contract negotiation.
Samsung is technically Apple's biggest rival in the global smartphone market. They manufacture their own competing flagship devices under the Galaxy banner.
Being forced to give your worst enemy a massive financial discount just to keep your own factory lights from shutting off feels like paying rent to your own home invader.
Study the sheer volume forecasted by UBI Research for this fiscal year. Samsung Display is locked in to supply 46 million OLED panels,
with 26 million designated specifically for the Pro Max.
LG Display is scheduled to supply 41 million panels, with 21 million reserved exclusively for the Pro Max.
Shipping 47 million Pro Max panels guarantees a steady stream of revenue, even at a severely depressed, borderline insulting price of $66.50.
Any other company on Earth asking for this discount would be laughed out of the boardroom.
Nobody else can match Apple's shipment volume for a single premium smartphone model.
Apple acts as the only entity big enough to feed these massive production lines and keep the chemical vats boiling.
They dictate the price floor because Samsung and LG simply cannot find 47 million premium buyers anywhere else on the planet.
The dynamic forces Samsung and LG into a corner. They either accept the $66 deal or they intentionally shut down massive portions of their own manufacturing infrastructure.
And lay off thousands of workers. Apple exploits the sheer scale of its massive user base to force key suppliers into absolute submission.
Apple successfully saves roughly $14 to $20 per individual display panel.
Compare that to the total bill of materials increase. The internal chips are surging by $300.
The math is brutal. The display savings cannot possibly offset the massive hike in chip and memory costs.
The iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to launch in September 2026, potentially alongside Apple's highly anticipated first foldable iPhone, and the consumer is caught entirely in the crossfire.
The illusion of consumer savings disintegrates at the cash register.
The $20 saved by squeezing Samsung on the OLED panel gets entirely swallowed by the $280 cost of the microscopic A20 Pro chip.
Apple forces the supply chain to absorb a tiny fraction of the chipflation damage, passing the remaining penalty directly to the consumer holding the credit card.
Analysts expect a $200 jump in the retail price over the previous 17 Pro Max generation.
Starting prices are rumored at $12,299 for the Pro model and $1,399 for the Pro Max.
Weibo leakers deep inside the Chinese supply chain suggest the price could hike even further to an eye-watering $1,625 for higher storage tiers.
The financial reality of this deal reveals a bizarre, inverted dynamic. You are paying vastly more money for the invisible memory components, while the physical display you interact with every single day is being cheapened on a corporate spreadsheet.
The value proposition of the hardware is actively deteriorating in your hands.
Suppliers forced to take a 20% price cut on a premium component must find hidden efficiencies to survive the contract.
The McRumors comment section is terrified that these deeply squeezed suppliers will inevitably drop their quality control requirements just to maintain their razor-thin margins,
slashing their internal testing budgets and widening the acceptable tolerance for microscopic defects.
Users expect iPhones shipping with micro-scratches on the glass or subtle structural defects in the chassis.
Fewer rejected displays off the production line means the suppliers get paid for more units produced.
People are literally planning to inspect their new 2026 phones under a microscope the second they open the box.
A display panel, with a slight color shift that would have been thrown in the trash 2 years ago, suddenly passes inspection.
The relentless pursuit of the $66 panel inevitably degrades the final fit and finish of the flagship device.
Devaluing that specific physical interface to afford a faster processor creates a compromised piece of hardware.
You are handing over $1,400 for a flagship device built by suppliers who are desperately cutting corners just to break even on Apple's suffocating contract.
The screen is the literal window into the operating system.
Apple shifts the financial burden in two opposite directions simultaneously, penalizing the supplier on the procurement side by demanding unworkable discounts, while actively punishing the consumer on the retail side with a massive price hike.
Sitting comfortably in the middle, Apple aggressively insulates their gross margins from the reality of global semiconductor inflation.
This bizarre reality creates a strange, almost dystopian future for consumer electronics.
The invisible components are actively cannibalizing the physical device.
The processor and the memory modules are devouring the entire manufacturing budget of the phone, leaving scraps for the parts you actually hold against your face.
Manufacturers will eventually run out of external components to downgrade.
The display panels and the external chassis have an absolute price floor dictated by raw physical materials.
You cannot negotiate glass and aluminum down to $0.
If memory and processing chips continue to get this radically expensive, manufacturers will hit a brutal wall. How soon until the actual physical experience of holding a premium smartphone feels completely cheap, hollowed out entirely just to afford the invisible brain running it?